Master Chief and Mendicant Bia both share a very shocking but strange connection to Installation 07. The ring, by the way, will be visiting in Halo Infinite. But what can all these clues and mysteries tell us about Halo Infinite's story? Well, today's theory video is going to go extremely deep into Halo lore and may contain some spoilers, who knows? So let's go ahead and get into it. This video is supported by Audible. Snag yourself a free Halo audiobook right down in the description below. So like in my other intense lore theory videos, I will recap a bunch of relevant, interesting information, and by the end, we will make sense of it and have some plausible theory and dissect. Today is gonna get real juicy though, so let's start off with Mendicant Bia. Now, if you don't know who that is, it was a top-of-the-line Foreigner AI and was purposed to destroy the advancing Flood threat 100,000 years ago back in the Foreigner days before the Halo games took place. Now, it was during this ancient time that this AI would help test fire Installation 07, aka Zeta Halo, on a solar system-wide power setting. But because of this firing, the Primordial would end up being subjected and studied on Zeta Halo. Now, if you don't know who the Primordial was, he was, to put it simply, a very ancient form of the Flood's gravemind, or also known as the last surviving precursor. A very ancient civilization, by the way, which was a much more transcendent civilization than the Foreigners were before they wiped them out. Now, it was here on Installation 07 that Mendicant would enter a 43-year-long conversation that would eventually corrupt and logic plague the hell out of him in his AI-ness, eventually making him defect to the Flood side and turn against his creators, the Foreigners. In a similar fashion, we have something kind of mirroring that with Cortana, as she was also tortured for a month straight upon high charity after Master Chief left her there at the end of Halo 2. Although her conversation was much shorter, it was under different circumstances, which is pretty much her being forced to listen to him. And she's also a human AI, much less advanced than Mendicant. And there's a bunch of clues, even close confirmations I would argue, that Cortana, like Mendicant, is or was suffering from this Flood manipulation virus of sorts, whether she knows it or not. It also didn't take long for Installation 07, where Mendicant and the Primordial were housed, would eventually be taken control of and go missing when Mendicant defected. So how does Master Chief tie into all this? Well, as alluded to back as far as Halo 1, Master Chief has a profound and shocking connection to an ancient Foreigner named Bornsteller, who was a Foreigner that actually fired the Halo rings at the end of the Foreigner Flood War. Back in his days, as a curious and rebellious builder, he went to Earth, ancient Earth, looking for an ancient precursor tech, and made some human companions. One was Chaka's, which is, by the way, 3 for 3 Guilty Spark before he became Monitor. But eventually he stumbled across the Didact's 10,000-year slumber. He was entombed in a Krypton ball like he was in Halo 4. And it was then there that the Didact committed a terrible mutation on him to get into the domain and imprinted him with his consciousness, basically allowing him to live through Bornsteller at any time for any reason. Basically, mind control to keep it simple. But anywho, Bornsteller soon would go to a trial at the Capitol, but was attacked by the rampant Foreigner Ancilia Mendicant Bia with Installation 07. And it was during this attack that Bornsteller, under the influence of your Didact, took control and got him safely to the Greater Arc and survived the rising danger of the Flood. Bornsteller, or ISO Didact, managed to survive all this with the mind control, if you will, of the Didact, and eventually tracked down Installation 07 and shut down Mendicant Bia. However, the Flood actually rescued him years later, and his separated parts were reassembled by the Flood. After a massive battle on the Magnet Sphere, which easily is the largest battle in Halo history with millions of ships and billions of lives at stake, Mendicant Bia and the Flood eventually lost, and his personality construct was taken to the Ark for study. However, Mendicant Bia wasn't straight up destroyed by the Foreigners because he had basically limitless, very intimate knowledge of the Flood. Since he joined their side and learned so much from them, it was decided by the Foreigners to keep him alive, however, at large, disabled. Basically, Mendicant Bia, much like a phone, was cracked apart, taken apart, and separated all over the galaxy, with one of his main components being locked away in a vast desert on the Ark, coded to think one thought in mind: atonement. He even speaks of this in the Halo 3 terminals, which he's speaking directly at John, but that's for another video. He might actually have influenced Master Chief for the better part of the Halo games. Anyway, one of Mendicant's primary extensions, his core, is still housed on Installation 07, as far as we know. Again, the place we'll be visiting in Halo Infinite. His core is within an enormous city-like hub of data crystals which hovered over a web-like network of green hard light walkways deep within the ring's innards. So this might actually be a place that we visit in Halo Infinite, but I'll talk more about that soon. But let's talk about ancient humans. Ancient humans used to live on this ring. Although it's super unlikely any of them survived this ring's violent history, there's still plenty of structures, maybe large pyramids and ancient cities there, as we've even seen in the trailers that there's these structures still lying around, and they were most definitely created by some intelligent life, of course, that being ancient humans. And there's even old writings on the wall, as we saw in the initial trailer. Now, many Halo community members have come to the consensus that this reads Enemy Within, which likely was written by ancient humans that were, at the time, I'm sure, were referring to the fact that Flood experiments, where many of them were kidnapped, and they went to a place named the Palace of Pain on this ring, where Mendicant Bia and another foreigner basically experimented on them, trying to find a cure for the Flood, and then they just did it because they're sick fucks. Eventually, these humans scattered off, abandoning the cities, abandoning their homes, and to live out the rest of their days in dense forests or caves, or maybe like the one we saw, maybe scratching stuff on the wall there, right? And another cool thing I want to mention is that most official photos have Mendicant with him with 3 eyes here, which I'm sure you've seen a lot of, but this is actually his casing with the Flood. But on Installation 07, Bias was transported in a 2-meter wide monitor shell with a single green eye. So if we do see Mendicant Bia in Halo Infinite, that is likely the first thing we're going to see with him. Let me know what you think about all this so far down in the comments below. Alright, so we're getting close to the real juicy stuff here. Remember, Master Chief shares the same geas as Bornstellar. Alright, so we talked about that earlier. Basically, Bornstellar was the dude that fired the Halo rings, basically meaning that technically Master Chief has the same tie to the person that wiped out the galaxy 100,000 years ago. So Gias, aka Genesongs, which I can actually pronounce correctly, it's a term for a foreigner genetic command imposed on a single organism or species. Basically, these Genesongs are genetic codes that can influence a set of subconscious orders for a specific organism or even an entire species and get passed on to specific children. Or like in Halo 4, we learned that the Librarian admits to having Master Chief planned 100,000 years ago, or at least that seems to be what's greatly implied. Back in Halo 1, 343 Guilty Spark refers to Chief and speaks to him about his hesitancy to fire the ring, which that they had already done before, which totally backs up this theory that way back in Halo 1, 343 Guilty Spark is talking to Master Chief and recognizes that he does in fact have the same Genesong. And if we want to know more about Master Chief's connection to this ring and his purpose, then we have to know more about Bornstellar. And that's why I think he's going to be a big part of Halo Infinite. But in Halo 4, the Librarian got to Chief's Genesong and awoke it, accessed it, and enabled it, and gave him immunity to the Composer, which saves his life later on. Her awakening for him also gave Chief, quote, many gifts, which doesn't include just immunity to the Composer, but also other things that we have no idea what they are. One of these gifts may actually be the ability to communicate to Bornstellar directly. And since Bornstellar was such a focus on the Foreigner canon, it's entirely possible that he still lives, considering that at the end of the Foreigner Flood War, he and the other remaining Foreigners exiled themselves outside of the Milky Way galaxy. However, Guilty Spark post-Human Covenant War claimed that he was actually, in fact, dead. Also, if you're confused about what I just said, 343 Guilty Spark, that dude from Halo 1 to 3, did survive Halo 3, sort of, and he claims that yes, Bornstellar is dead. But we don't know for sure. But this all could mean that Master Chief will likely have visions of ancient past, or maybe even communicate with the Librarian or Bornstellar and learn more things about basically what his purpose in life is. One of these gifts also might be the ability to enter the domain, as I'm pretty sure he did in Halo 5 Guardians. As this whole plot point, this whole theory wasn't really quite addressed in Halo 5 at all, besides him probably entering the domain there there, and all the talk about the mantle, which we'll talk more about in just a moment here. But the Librarian actually communicated briefly with Ryan, John Forge's daughter in modern day Halo lore, as well as other times that this has happened, so it is completely possible for telecommunication to happen. And also, Cortana already did this with Master Chief, and it's quite shocking, so I'll talk about that in another video, but yes, let's move on. Okay, so where is this all going? Well, with the Flood housed on Installation 07, including proto-grave mines, it's completely possible, I'd say very likely, that the Flood has a chance at escaping, since now we know that the ring has been shattered, likely giving the once contained Flood and grave mines now a chance to escape, aboard the ring, and potentially find a way off, but at the very least, begin infecting the wildlife and maybe even ancient humans on this ring. 343 officially confirmed that the Flood had an outbreak in 2558 here on Installation 07. However, the Swords and Kilios glass the surface with help of human forces, which also means at some point allies will be present during the campaign on the array, and the Flood has already broken out on this ring, which could totally mean that they might do it again, and it might be in the next Halo game. I keep thinking about what caused this destruction, what destroyed Zeta Halo, and whose motive would it be? I mean, this certainly wasn't an easy task, and I always think that, well, it would easily be Cortana. If Cortana really is infected by the Logic Plague, which I guarantee you she is, and working for the Flood unconsciously, much like how Mendicant was, then her motive isn't to fire the rings. In fact, her motive is the same as the Flood, which is to help the Flood and destroy anything that might stop the Flood. Like at the end of Halo 5, after seeing this E3 trailer, I'm like, well, she's not trying to fire the ring, she's actually trying to destroy it, which makes absolute sense. So what if Master Chief's big purpose in life is to, ironically, not stop the rings this time, but actually to fire them, like Bornstellar did 100,000 years ago? At the end of Halo 5, her humming isn't a foreshadowing of her wanting to fire the rings, but rather intention to destroy them, like how she stopped Installation 09 with Anders on it. Perhaps she is looking for these rings to ensure that they are destroyed so that the Flood has a chance at victory, at infecting everything. And besides, these Halo rings are weapons of mass destruction. They're basically nuclear bombs on the galactic scale. So even Cortana that wants to protect everything would want to destroy these rings because they have been used as weapons before. The Covenant almost fired them. The Banished wanted to use them as weapons. So even Mantle-obsessed Cortana would want to destroy these things. And ironically, Master Chief's huge purpose and mission is to not stop Cortana from firing rings, but rather to stop her from destroying them, because that might be the only chance at stopping the Flood this time around. Now, whether her destruction, if it was her, renders this ring unusable is up for debate, and it was likely Master Chief and maybe the Infinity who attempted to stop Cortana during this battle, which he apparently now had forgotten about and has some memory problems. I believe Master Chief, after being aboard this Pelican, will find himself back on Installation 07, and after some drama, after some clues, will take ancient human clothes, which has to be the explanation for the worn out cloak he was wearing years ago in 2013's E3 trailer, which, by the way, was only a tease for Halo on Xbox One, as they said, not for Halo 5, and find the Palace of Pain and learn about the Flood threat and how to stop it while finding a way to fight back, which the way to fight back against Cortana is not some kind of big weapon, but rather a brain of sorts, an ally, which would be Mendicant Bia, whose core is stored on Installation 07, all with the help of the Inhabiting Monitor, and seek out Mendicant Bias's core, wherever it may be, either buried under the ground or, like we heard, was stored inside a huge structure inside the ring, and use him as an ally to take down Cortana, but also to defeat the Flood, which Mendicant Bia has to be the best ally for doing both those things in the entire Halo canon. In Halo 4, the Librarian speaks of Chief as 1,000 generations of planning, but she was cut off by the Didact. Planning for what? What is it? Although it's kind of left us on a cliffhanger, and I don't think Halo 4 ever addressed this cliffhanger, Chief agreed to have his evolution accelerated. And all this has left me thinking something massive is about to happen, with the mantle being taken by Cortana, which was supposed to be humanity's mantle, and the destiny of the Reclaimers, like Master Chief, and Master Chief's center focus in the story. There's all kinds of shocking things that could happen, like him firing the ring, or him going into the domain, or something shocking happening with Bornstellar. If you have anything in mind, any theories, let me know down in the comments below. I'm surely going to talk about some of y'all's comments in a Halo podcast, Halo Club, but I believe most of this foreshadowing of Mendicant Bias, the Librarian's Genesongs in Chief, 343's Guilty Spark reference via Halo 1, and Bornstellar's connection will make some form or manifestation in Halo Infinite. If you want to learn more about this theory, then I recommend listening to Halo Primordium on Audible's 30-day free trial, linked down in the description. A lot of my sources on this video came from that audiobook, and it talks more about Installation 07, the Builders, the Foreigners era, so a bunch of juicy stuff there. So guys, like this video up too if you haven't already, and subscribe. Join me on this 8-year plus Halo journey, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care. Peace.